September 23rd, 8:50 a.m. District Court. Defendant Lamy, number 3. So the one thing we found out yesterday is that Sorin was there at the crime scene. I only hope I can get some testimony from him that'll get to the heart of the matter. Mr. Wright? Good morning, Ellen. Look, I'm afraid you might not like the result of today's trial. Nevertheless, don't tell me you're still thinking of going that route. Sorin is innocent! He can't be found guilty. Take me instead! Ellen, please, try to get a hold of yourself. I believe in Sorin with all my heart. So how dare you doubt him? Regardless of which one of them is found guilty today, it's gonna be devastating for Ellen, isn't it? We'll just have to do everything we can. That's the best we can do, you know? The trial's about to begin, Mr. Wright. Alright, let's go, Maya. Yeah. September 23rd, 9 a.m. District Court. Courtroom number 6. And before I begin, I want to say, it's hot where I'm at, so I hope you don't mind the fan noise. All rise. Court is back in session for the trial of Ellen Wyatt. The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. Let's see now, where were we? In yesterday's session, we found out about the Sprocket family's conspiracy to cover up the murder of Miss Gloomsbury with a second reception. Taking advantage of our collective shock, the defense, as usual, made a nonsensical claim, namely that there was a third person present who struck the victim.
Objection!
Hey, don't try to make it sound like I made it all up. The defendant herself made a statement about the existence of a third person, and further investigation has only proven her statement to be true. Then I presume the defense intends to focus on proving the identity of this third person? Is that all right with you, Mr. Edgeworth? Indeed, Your Honor. In fact, I predict that the defense will most likely attempt to name Mr. Sorin Sprocket as the true culprit. How did you... The driver during the accident that killed Mr. Sprocket's sister was the victim. Therefore, Mr. Sprocket had a motive to murder Mr. Gloomsbury. That's what you plan to assert, is it not, Mr. Wright? Am I that transparent? Come now, Mr. Wright. Did you really think the police wouldn't uncover this information? Congrats on getting it in one, Mr. Edgeworth. But... You're wrong! Sorin didn't do it! He's innocent! Miss Wyatt, please. He's innocent, I tell you! What is this, Mr. Wright? I thought your claim about the existence of a third person came from the defendant. It did. This is just a minor hiccup. Did you not discuss your strategy for today with the defendant, Mr. Wright? Starting off on the wrong foot again is seriously cutting into my lifespan. It would appear that the defense is in disarray. Therefore, the best way to clear things up is to ask Mr. Sprocket himself what happened. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Sorin Sprocket to the stand. What? Very well. Bailiff, please bring Mr. Sprocket to the witness stand. Now he finally takes the stand. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Ow! There's something written on this paper airplane. Let's see. Sorin Sprocket, Managing Director of Sprocket Aviation. Mr. Sprocket, please give your answers in words, not paper airplanes. Now then, Mr. Sprocket, please tell that doubting lawyer there what really happened at the time of the crime. No, Mr. Sprocket? Mr. Sprocket! Alright. You want me to talk about what happened when the crime occurred? In other words, after the first wedding reception. When Ellen and I were in the reception hall, right? Not even the power of the court can stop him from marching to the beat of his own drum. Witness testimony. What Sorin remembers. I was stabbed by Dumas in the reception hall and I collapsed to the floor. The next thing I saw was Ellen and Dumas on the Vista deck. I knew Ellen was in danger, so I headed for the Vista deck. But when I got there, Dumas was already... I don't want to believe it, but it must have been Ellen. Nothing else makes sense. Wait just a minute here. You actually think Miss Wyatt killed the victim? That's right. Dumas was killed by Ellen. This is unbelievable. How can you suspect your bride? The woman you love?
Objection!
God damn it, Edgeworth. The truth can be cruel. Miss Wyatt, you must be very upset. Is there anything you wish to say? No. I can't believe this. Sorin, I thought that at least you would believe in me. The best way now to show your love for your groom is to admit your guilt and try to atone. Sorin.
Hold it!
Hold on a second. Mr. Edgeworth, I haven't even cross-examined the witness yet. And quit picking on the clearly distraught. Yeah, that's so not cool, Mr. Edgeworth. A court is where we seek the truth. And the truth is unyielding, even to the truly pitiful. Mr. Edgeworth, I find it distasteful to make a lady cry. Et tu, Your Honor. So what are you gonna do, Nick? If the third person Ellen saw on the Vista deck was Sorin, then we have to prove Sorin was there at the time of the murder. I don't see any obvious inconsistencies in his testimony, but we have to push forward. And pushing forward is all we can do. I must see this through to the end. I was stabbed by Dumas in the reception hall and I collapsed to the floor.
Hold it!
Please tell me everything you can about when you got stabbed. After the reception, Ellen and I were enjoying a moment alone in the reception hall. Then Dumas appeared and stabbed me. He grabbed Ellen and the timekeeper and left the reception hall. Did Mr. Bloomsbury say anything at that time? I don't remember. After I was stabbed, I was immobilized by the pain. I see. The next thing I saw was Ellen and Dumas on the Vista deck. The Vista deck, huh? But it was nighttime then. Could you really see them in the darkness? The moon was out, so I could see them clearly. From the looks of it, Dumas was trying to push Ellen and the timekeeper off the side. So you saw the defendant, about to be thrown off the airship, you said? That's right. In such a desperate situation, it would only be natural for her to fight for her life. And the murder weapon was right there within her grasp. This isn't going well at all. I've got to do something. Fast. I knew Ellen was in danger, so I headed for the Vista deck.
Hold it!
I understand that your bride was in danger, but were you really able to move with a stab wound to the gut? I was desperately trying to push the pain out of my mind. I see. So adrenaline kicked in and gave you strength. Is that right? I don't see much of anything in this statement I can refute. That's right. I almost passed out several times as I made my way to the Vista deck. But when I got there, Dumas was already...
Hold it!
Are you absolutely sure, Mr. Sprocket, that by the time you got to the Vista deck, the murder had already been committed? Yes. But the Vista deck is just on the other side of the glass windows in the reception hall. Shouldn't you have been able to get there right away?
Objection!
Mr. Wright, have you investigated nothing? The only way to the Vista deck is to go to the hold and take the lift. No matter how much one hurries, it would take at least 10 minutes. Well, that's unhelpful. But Sorin had to have gotten there before the murder, or my claim won't stand. Do you have any ideas for me, Maya? It's definitely easier to prove that someone did go to the hole than not. I mean, you can't leave anything if you don't go someplace, right?
Can't leave anything. Wait a minute. I think Maya's onto something here. The lack of a certain something actually proves that Sorin didn't go to the hold. What's the matter? Are you stumped already? No. I'm far from stumped, Mr. Edgeworth. I know for a fact that Mr. Sprocket didn't go to the hold. You and your paper-thin bluffs. Mr. Sprocket's bloodstain on the lip proves he went through the hold. So what possible proof could you have that he did not in fact go through there?
You want proof?
You got it. You can do this, Phoenix. There's gotta be proof that Sorin didn't go through the hold. Well, Mr. Wright?
This proves that Mr. Sprocket didn't go through the hold.
And that is this, the hold entry record.
Take that!
As anyone can see from the hold entry record, there's absolutely no mention of Sorin Sprocket entering the hold. The defense asserts that Mr. Sprocket used a different route to get to the Vista deck.
You can assert all you want, Mr. Wright, but can you actually prove another route exists? Can I prove the existence of another route to the Vista deck, you ask? Yes.
I can prove it. Even if it's just a bluff, I have to present something. Anything that could prove the existence of a faster route to the Vista deck.
Very well then, Mr. Wright.
Show us how Mr. Sprocket got to the Vista deck. Mr. Sprocket made for the Vista deck through here. The hatch on the left side right here.
Take that!
To save his bride from danger, Mr. Sprocket opened the escape hatch and made his way along the outside wall of the Vista deck. Isn't that right, Mr. Sprocket?
That would certainly be a much faster route to the Vista.
Objection!
I'm disappointed, Mr. Wright. Is that really the best you could muster? That escape hatch is not meant to be used to get from the reception hall to the Vista deck. One slip and that's all it would take for Mr. Sprocket to plunge to his death. I have to agree, the defense's claim is really stretched.
I understand how it sounds, Your Honor. But at this point, it's too early to definitively say that he didn't go that way.
So that's what you're going with then, I take it.
Of course, Your Honor.
This is real life, Mr. Wright, not some cinematic drivel or comic book. Do you have some sort of logical explanation to share that would convince us of your claim?
I do. Are you sure, Nick? Kind of? Actually, I have nothing. So I'll just have to wing it somehow.
On what do you base your theory that Mr. Sprocket made his way along the outside?
My theory that he was able to go along the outside wall despite the danger is based on the power of love. I had to make a Huey Lewis reference. To save the bride he loves, the groom risked his life and rushed to her side. Mr. Sprocket was able to make it to the Vista deck despite the danger. Because of the power of love.
The power of love? That love is a source of strength that can help one overcome any obstacle. I think I can relate thanks to my own long, happy marriage. Wow, he actually seems to be buying it.
Objection!
The power of love, you say?
That kind of illogical argument is hardly viable in a court of law.
Wouldn't you agree, Your Honor? I'm afraid not, Mr. Edgeworth. You should never underestimate the power of love. You'll understand one day when you get married, which I won't. Exactly what is so wrong with wishing to remain unwed?
Way to set him off, Your Honor. Never mind all this unscientific nonsense. Are you aware, Mr. Wright, that at the time of the crime, there was a huge propeller turning at full speed between the hatch and the Vista deck? Even if a person were to go outside through the hatch, they'd be blown away in an instant. Ah!
Where does your power of love get you now, Mr. Wright? A huge spinning propeller, you say? In that case, I have to admit it does seem impossible.
I should have known. Nick, you can't make that kind of face in front of your client. The worst of times are when lawyers have to force their biggest smiles, right?
Right. I feel like I just saw Mia looking out at me through Maya's eyes. We still miss you, Mia.
What's wrong, Nick? Why are you gaping at me like a giant sunfish?
Thank you, Maya. You just helped me remember something really important.
There it is. There's that foolish smile I was looking for. Now give us a mind-blowing theory, just like you always do.
I have to turn my thinking around. Instead of wondering how Sorin could have moved past that huge propeller, I have to think about what would have made it possible for him to do so. Your Honor, Mr. Wright only makes that ridiculous face when his back is pressed against the wall. Therefore, please do hurry and give your ruling before... We're not done yet. Mr. Edgeworth, it's still far too early to discount my theory. What are you talking about? The airship's large spinning propellers have already shredded it to pieces. But if we think a little more outside the box, I'm sure we can find a way he could have made it. Stop trying to stall, Mr. Wright, and show us how it could have been even remotely possible, if at all. I must agree with Mr. Edgeworth. Very well, Your Honor. There must have been a way. Some way that Sorin could have moved along the wall in spite of the propeller. Now then, Mr. Wright, what specifically would have made it possible? This is how it would have been possible for Mr. Sprocket to get to the Vista deck. The airship wasn't flying. What allowed Mr. Sprocket to go along the outside wall in spite of the propellers? Is the location of the flying chapel at the time of the crime. The location of the flying chapel? Wasn't it flying high in the sky? No, Your Honor, I'm afraid it wasn't. What? Then where was it? At the time of the murder, the airship wasn't flying through the sky, but more to the ground. What? And if the airship wasn't flying, then that means the propellers weren't turning. In which case, Mr. Sprocket could have gotten to the Vista deck along the outside wall. Isn't that right, Mr. Sprocket? I don't remember. Ow! Stabbed himself with his pencil. That's gonna leave a mark. Objection! Even if the propellers weren't turning, it would have been far too risky to go that way. Ah, but Mr. Edgeworth, you're forgetting about the power of love. Yes, the amazing power of love. Not this again! Very well. For the sake of argument, let's assume the so-called power of love made it possible for Mr. Sprocket to move along the outside wall of the airship. Can you prove that the airship was tied to the ground as you claim, Mr. Wright? Well, I don't have any evidence that proves where the airship was at the time. You can prove it, can't you? Maya, can you think of anything we can use to prove it? Can't say I can. Oh, wait! Didn't somebody see something outside a window at the time of the crime? I think I remember someone saying as much. Do I have a piece of evidence that shows what was outside the airship? Well, what are you waiting for? This piece of evidence shows what was outside the airship at the time of the crime. And I hate to do this, but Larry's drawing it. This piece of evidence shows what was outside the airship at the time of the murder. What kind of lousy drawing is that? It's a drawing made by Larry Butts. And what can you prove with that poor attempt at artistry? Larry made this drawing before he switched the lanterns, so it must have been right around when the murder was being committed. Now, if I could direct the court's attention here. Is that a pterodactyl? Does that mean that the airship actually went back in time to the Cretaceous period? Objection! No, it didn't. We've already proven that time travel is nothing more than a gimmick, did we not? We did, and I have no intention of bringing up that argument again, but this drawing shows us an important piece of information. It shows us that the airship was actually moored on the ground. And what makes you so sure? That's easy.
All you have to do is consider who made this drawing.
Larry.
That's right. It was Mr. Butts, and we both know what he's like. He must have seen something else and mistaken it for a pterodactyl.
I can't argue with you there.
Hey! Wait just one doggone second here. What kind of moron do you guys take me for? I saw it with my own eyes. A pterodactyl flew right by the window, I tell you. I have the sharp eyes of an artist. Don't you believe me?
No.
Nick?
Nope.
Some friends you guys are. What about the judge? You believe me, right, Your Honor?
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you need to leave this courtroom. Bailiff, if you would. Come on, buddy, let's go.
Why doesn't anybody believe me? Don't take it personally, Larry. I know you're just being, well, you.
Now then, you're saying that what Mr. Butts really saw bears some relation to what was outside the airship at the time of the murder.
Yes, Your Honor. At least I think it does. What this pterodactyl really is will prove the airship was anchored at the mooring dock. It had better anyway. If it doesn't, my whole argument is a bust.
If you're that confident about it, then please go ahead and tell us what it really was.
Yes, Your Honor. Think, Phoenix. What could that pterodactyl have actually been?
Maybe this broken sign. Right?
Take that! Please take a good look at this sign.
Have a sign? It appears to have been broken and then repaired.
But what does this sign have to do with the pterodactyl? Please focus on this part of the sign. The part that broke off and got reattached?
What about it?
How about if we turn it like this?
Oh, that shape! It's the pterodactyl in the drawing!
What Mr. Butts actually saw was this chunk as it was being blown through the air by wind.
What?
On the day of the murder, there were some heavy winds in the area of the mooring dock, but it's hard to imagine that this sign would make it up as high as an airship would fly. That means the flying chapel must have been anchored at the mooring dock that night. Isn't that right, Mr. Sprocket?
Objection! Come on, Edgeworth.
That's more than enough of this power of love nonsense, you pop culture junkie. Present all the proof you want, but your argument is based far too much in conjecture. Why don't we return to reality now? What do you mean, too much conjecture?
Even if the airship wasn't flying, that alone doesn't prove the witness went along with the wall.
True. Even now, it's no more than a possibility. Then how do you propose Mr. Sprocket got to the Vista deck, Mr. Edgeworth?
I noticed something as I went over the evidence. Please take a look at this hold entry record.
What about it?
I don't see Mr. Sprocket listed on here anywhere.
Don't you remember? In yesterday's session, we had a very similar kind of argument.
Did we?
Honestly, Mr. Wright, are you going senile already? We talked about Larry Butts using the defendant's keycard to enter the hold.
Oh, we did talk about that, didn't we?
In other words, even if a person's name isn't on the entry record, it's still possible for that person to have entered by using someone else's card. Ah! Mr. Sprocket, you entered the hold with Mr. Nicardi, didn't you?
I did.
What? Why didn't you tell us that in the first place?
Pierce is indispensable. I didn't want to mention him unnecessarily and risk having him wrongly accused. I couldn't do without him.
Mr. Sprocket, I ask that you testify in greater detail about your movements that night.
Witness testimony. The truth. The truth is, I went to the Vista deck with Pierce. That's why my name doesn't appear on the hold entry record. I was badly injured from being stabbed, but I was frantic. By the time we reached the scene, it was all over. Well, this doesn't help me one bit. Mr. Sprocket, you've concealed information from us time and time again. Who do you think you are, treating this court of law with such irreverence? That being said, I do appreciate the testimony you gave just now. Thanks to you, we now know why your name doesn't appear on the entry record. Now there are no more inconsistencies in the witness's testimony.
That's Mr. Edgeworth for you. He never leaves a loose end dangling. You okay, Nick?
I wouldn't exactly call this situation okay. Somehow I'll have to coax the information we need for an opening out of him. If I ever can, that is. Well, let's see what we can find out about the truth. The truth is, I went to the Vista deck with Pierce. You didn't mention this because you didn't want Mr. Nicali to fall under suspicion. Is it that because he has something to hide? I just didn't want the police to take up his time with all their questions, that's all. Neither the company nor the household would function smoothly without him. I see. Wow, sounds like Pierce is absolutely indispensable to the Sprockets. Anyway, getting back to your statement, when did you meet up with Mr. Nicati? We met up on my way to the Vista deck. I think Pierce and some of my relatives were on another floor, but Pierce heard the commotion and came running to my aid. He could hear the pandemonium all the way from another floor? Mr. Wright, would you like the current statement out of the witness's testimony? Yes. Yes, please, Your Honor. Very well. Pierce heard the commotion, and he came running. Did Mr. Nicati come alone? I believe some of his subordinates were with him, but I don't remember exactly how many. He may say they were others, but see how they pulled that second reception off. I can't completely trust anything he has to say either. I see. So you, Mr. Nicati, and a few others headed to the Vista deck, is that right? That's right. That's why my name doesn't appear on the hold entry record. I was badly injured from being stabbed, but I was frantic. Speaking of your injury, how are you doing now? The knife wound is deep and continues to throb with pain. Fortunately, my internal organs were spared, but one wrong move would have spelled the end for me there. Even so, I've seen you up and about all over the place since the incident. I'm only following my doctor's orders to perform some daily light exercises. Mr. Wright, would you like Mr. Sprocket's statement about his condition added to his testimony? Not that it appears especially relevant to me. Should I have him added to his testimony? Yes. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to have it added to his testimony. I see. Very well. The knife wound is quite deep and continues to throb with pain. I see. That can explain why I have to present this.
Objection!
Mr. Sprocket, you just said your injury is a knife wound, didn't you? But the weapon you were stabbed with was this candelabra. A fact I know you're quite aware of. Very well. This is what I heard directly from Master Sorin himself. As you surmise, Mr. Sorin was stabbed by Gloomsbury on the day of the murder. It happened after the first wedding reception. The happy couple was in the reception hall when suddenly Gloomsbury appeared. He attacked Miss Ellen and tried to take her away. Master Sorin went to stop him and found himself in a struggle with Gloomsbury. That is when Master Sorin was stabbed with the candelabra, he said.
Objection!
It must have been a simple memory slip that made him misspeak. It happens to everyone. It has nothing to do with the case. You must be pretty desperate to point out something so minute. I have to agree, Mr. Wright. You hardly need to make such a big deal over such a small mistake. But I contend that it's an important inconsistency. Besides, I couldn't find anything else. This is the only thing I have to go after. And I say it's not important. And let's not waste any more time on this matter. I agree. Everybody has a little memory lapse every now and then.
Hold it!
Wait a minute. But, Your Honor, please let me explain. But can you? Can you really explain to this court what makes this slip so important?
Yes, I can, Your Honor. After all, it was Sorin himself who told Pierce that he had been stabbed by a candelabra. This is more than a simple memory slip. There has to be some kind of reason for it.
Well, Mr. Wright, please explain why the witness's slip of the tongue is so important.
The point to focus on here is why the witness would mistake the weapon used to stab him. Think carefully, Phoenix. This could very well change the course of this trial.
I see. So why did the witness make that mistake, Mr. Wright?
Mr. Sprocket identified the wrong weapon used against him because he has no memory of it. He doesn't remember the incident, let alone the weapon used against him. Not only that, but I believe Mr. Sprocket has some sort of memory disorder. Therefore, the defense contends that Mr. Sprocket's testimony thus far is invalid.
Objection!
Just because you can't find a flaw in his testimony, you want to throw it all out? Your baseless claim is nothing but pure slander of the witness's character.
Mr. Edgeworth is correct, Mr. Wright. Can you explain your grounds for making this claim?
Of course, Your Honor. Think of what Sorin has said, how he's behaved. That's where I'll find a clue.
Very well. Let's hear your argument, then.
My grounds for claiming that Mr. Sprocket has a memory disorder is his notebook. The notebook he always has with him. I saw daily events and information about the people around him recorded in it.
Like a diary, perhaps?
No, Your Honor. It's much too detailed to be an ordinary diary. It's more on the order of a database, actually.
A database, you say?
That's right. For some reason, Mr. Sprocket is apparently unable to retain memories. That's why he writes every little detail of his life down in his notebook.
Objection!
How could you possibly know that for sure? He might just be an extremely compulsive person. I thought so too myself at first. To be honest, we accidentally got a stain on that notebook yesterday. You mean you got a stain on it? Hey, you're the one who tried to grab it out of my...
Objection!
Never mind whose fault it was. Just get to the point already. Right. Sorry. Mr. Sprocket. The page Miss Faye got a stain on yesterday. That's the page with the details of your stabbing on it, isn't it? No. I only write in this notebook because I'm very compulsive. Now drop the subject already. Sorry, but I'm not convinced. I noticed an odd fact about your notebook, Mr. Sprocket. On the earlier pages, you used it to write down invention ideas. But after a certain date, you started writing down a lot more and in much more detail. I believe your memory disorder stems from what happened on that date.
Something so monumental it caused a memory disorder, Mr. Wright.
You don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, but I do know what I'm talking about. And this is the proof. This is the thing that caused Mr. Sprocket's memory disorder. The newspaper article.
Take that!
You were involved in this car accident too, weren't you, Mr. Sprocket? And the shock of losing your beloved older sister is what caused you to develop your memory disorder. Is this true, Mr. Sprocket?
Well, is it?
Mr. Sprocket! It's true. That accident did something to my mind.
What?
Ever since that day, every time I go to sleep, I lose my memories. And when I wake up, the most recent thing I can remember is the day I lost my sister. It's as if I'm constantly going back in time.
What? That's truly tragic.
An inconsolable time traveler who goes back in time whenever he goes to sleep. Besides, time travelers do exist, you know, but you wouldn't understand. So that's what Sorin meant. He was talking about himself. The reactions of the people around me each time I awoke made me aware of my condition. That's why I decided to write everything down in my notebook, so I could move forward. So the only memories you have since that day are the ones written in that notebook? That's right. And since the page about your stabbing got stained, you couldn't read from it, could you? There's just one more thing I'd like you to clarify for me, Mr. Sprocket. Exactly what are your feelings toward the victim?
Mr. Sprocket's feelings towards Dumas Bloomsbury?
That's right, Your Honor. The witness said that every time he wakes up from sleep, his mind goes blank back to the day his sister died.
Mr. Wright, you can't mean...
Mr. Sprocket, your pent-up feelings of anger and resentment towards Mr. Bloomsbury for the accident were renewed each and every time you woke, were they not? But you couldn't take it anymore, so you turned to murder. Isn't that right?
What? Mr. Wright, are you saying that the witness murdered Mr. Bloomsbury? For revenge?
Well, Mr. Sprocket? Okay, so who's gonna interrupt me this time? Ellen! Miss Wyatt! Your Honor, I did it. I killed Mr. Bloomsbury.
No! What?
This case just keeps getting wild. Miss Wyatt, what are you trying to do? Don't tell me you're still thinking of going that route. Sorin is innocent. He can't be found guilty. Take me instead. Ellen, please, try to get a hold of yourself. I guess she really meant it. My Sorin didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who should be convicted.
Are we to understand that you're confessing your guilt?
No. Now wait just a minute here.
Ellen, why would you cover for me?
After I testified that I thought you must have killed him. I'll admit, I couldn't believe my ears at first. But all I want is for you to be happy. Your happiness is my happiness, Sorin.
But without my notebook, I even forget those feelings of yours by tomorrow. Knowing that, do you still feel this way?
You've loved me all this time, the same way you did before the accident. That's how I know that you're the same person I've always loved. No disorder can change that.
Ellen. Your Honor, there are two things I'd like to correct. Two corrections? What are they?
First of all, I want to withdraw one of my statements.
That's right. Dumas was killed by Ellen. Without memories to rely on, I took the police completely at their word. You can't be serious!
So that means Sorin never really doubted Ellen in the first place, did he, Nick? Ellen really does love Sorin with all her heart. But in order to save her, I'll still have to go after Sorin. I hope you could forgive me, Ellen.
And what is your other correction, Mr. Sprocket? The truth is, I never felt anger or resentment towards Dumas about my sister.
What? Why not?
That's because the one who caused the car accident was me.
What?
Order in the court! Please continue, Mr. Sprocket.
I'm the one who killed my sister. To protect my career and my future, my father made Dumas take the blame, in exchange for money and the position of lead servant. Well. So you see, Dumas must have held a grudge against me, not the other way around. And he must have attacked Ellen to get his revenge on me. Are you sure about all this, Mr. Sprocket?
Very sure.
It's all been written down in detail in my notebook.
That notebook is important evidence supplying background in this case. I must insist you submitted this evidence.
The lawyer said I had turned to murder, but that's just not true. However, it is true that my older sister and Dumas are both dead because of me and my negligence.
I just glanced through Mr. Sprocket's notebook. I wasn't able to read the part about when he was stabbed due to the bloodstain. But what's written here about his sister's car accident is exactly as he stated. Your Honor, as long as it matches what's written in that notebook, can we still take the witness's testimony as valid in spite of his memory disorder? Yes, I believe we can. I understand now that the witness's memory is in disarray. But if what Mr. Sprocket himself wrote in the notebook is true, then that means by the time Mr. Sprocket's party reached the scene, the victim had already been killed.
Edgeworth's right. I'm still in the same bind as before. But should I really simply accept the contents of the notebook as a substitute for Sorin's memory?
Well, Mr. Wright, what do you think? Will you accept Mr. Sprocket's notebook as an official representation of his memories?
Will I accept Mr. Sprocket's notebook as an official representation of his memories?
No.
Wait a minute, Your Honor. The defense requests a chance to examine the notebook to see if it's trustworthy.
Very well, but be quick about it.
Thank you, Your Honor. So how should we examine it? Well, we should look at it from all different angles to see if there's anything suspicious.
Well, let's examine it.
There's no point if I don't look at what's inside. I have to open it. With your permission, Sorin. Here I go.
Yikes! Oh, it's just the page Maya got all stained. But I guess it's not going to be very helpful at this moment. I'll keep going.
This is the last page where there's writing.
Something about this page doesn't sit right with me.
I better take a closer look.
Huh?
A page has been torn out, and it looks like there was something written on it. It looks like a page has been torn out here. Mr. Sprocket, do you know what was written on it?
Oh, that? I often tear out a page when I write somebody a note. I probably wrote something down for somebody, tore it out, and gave it to them.
Oh, yeah.
That solves that.
Objection!
We're not finished. Wait a minute. We can't ignore the possibility that something important was written on that page.
But now that the page has been torn out, how can we determine what was written there?
Well, let's see. To find out what was written in the notebook, we should use fingerprint powder. If we use fingerprint powder on the notebook, we might be able to see what was written.
Fingerprint powder? How will that help us find out what was written there?
Well, if the writing left indentations on the blank page behind it, fingerprint powder could make those small indentations visible to the naked eye.
Oh, stop. Fingerprint powder would only sully the notebook further. Mr. Wright, if you use the powder and still don't find anything,
then you must accept the notebook as a representation of the witness's memories. All right, Your Honor, I understand. If I don't find anything, it's all over anyway. Powder, don't fail me now. I will now use fingerprint powder on the blank page to find out if we can see what was written on the torn out page. First, I'll apply some fingerprint powder to those pages with the A button. When I've dusted on enough powder, I'll use the blow to blow the excess powder away. If something should appear, I should switch to analyze mode, point to what came up, then confirm my choice.
hello? Looks like we found something.
It says, I struck and killed Dumas. This is huge! I struck and killed Dumas. That's what was written on the torn out page.
What? It can't be.
I don't believe it. There has to be some kind of mistake. Sorin could never.
Ah, great, she fainted. Miss Wyatt! Bailiff, please get the defendant to the infirmary at once. Apparently, the defendant got too worked up. She's resting in the infirmary as we speak. Now then, please continue, Mr. Wright.
Yes, Your Honor. This notebook is all Mr. Sprocket has to remember things by. With this critical page torn out, not even Mr. Sprocket himself knew the truth of what he'd done. I'm the one who killed Dumas? So it wasn't Ellen? Oh, thank goodness. Mr. Sprocket, does this mean you were at the crime scene during the murder after all? I guess I must have been. But Mr. Sprocket, can we really believe what's written in this notebook? Nobody touches this notebook but me, and when I sleep it's under lock and key. I don't remember writing that I killed Dumas, but I guess I must have.
Well, now that we have a confession, I'm afraid I must render my verdict. Of all them.
Yes, Your Honor. Please give your ruling now while Ellen is asleep. I want the woman I love to be set free as soon as possible. Sorin really does love Ellen after all, doesn't he? Yeah. So this is how it ends? But is that how it really went down? Is there really no way for them both to be happy?
I know we should consider anything written in a notebook to be the truth, but still.
I myself wrote of the crime in my notebook. No further proof is necessary. Sorin himself wrote it in his notebook. Wait a minute.
Very well. I will now give my verdict.
Ellen is about to be found not guilty, and Sorin will be convicted for the crime instead. And yet, am I really ready for the judge to give his ruling? Hell no! No, not when there's still one more avenue left to explore.
This court finds the defendant Ellen Wyatt.
Your Honor, there's still something that bothers me about that notebook.
Oh, is there?
What are you doing, Mr. Wright? All you have to do is keep quiet and your client's a free woman. I know, but I think there might be more to this case than meets the eye. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think there still might be a way. A way for Ellen and Sorin to be happy.
What do you mean by more of it meets the eye, Mr. Wright?
I believe the question here, Your Honor, should be, why was the incriminating page torn out in the first place?
Why, to destroy the evidence, I would imagine.
But removing it from the notebook is the same as removing it from Mr. Sprocket's memory, which means he wouldn't have been able to trick the police if he came under suspicion. No, if he wanted to cover up his crime, he would have to remember that he had done it.
Just what are you getting at with this line of inquiry, Mr. Wright? Yes, please explain it so that we can all understand.
Yes, Your Honor. The page was torn out of the notebook because somebody else tore it out. The incriminating page was torn out by somebody else.
What? Order! Order! Are you claiming a third person interfered with the notebook?
It's not all that surprising if you consider what's happened up until now. After both the car accident and the murder of Dumas Bloomsbury, there was always a cover-up not far behind. But I had my notebook with me at all times. Did you? Because I remember you were in a panic yesterday because you couldn't find it.
That's true. So who orchestrated this particular cover-up, Mr. Wright?
If we think back over the course of this trial, it's pretty easy to guess. The one who may have tried to tamper with Sorin's memory is none other than Pierce Nicati.
Take that!
The one who tampered with the notebook in order to manipulate Mr. Sprocket's memory is Pierce Nicati.
Pierce?
Pierce tried to tamper with my memories? Pierce was manipulating me? Case in point, the 2 receptions that were held to cover up the murder. It was Mr. Nakati who directed the guests and orchestrated the entire scheme. No, it can't be. Which of my memories are mine and which have been rewritten? When did he start rewriting my memories? Who wrote this? And this? And this? And this? And this? And this? And this? Ah! He literally took off! Ah! What? Look, Nick, he's coming back down. My memories, Ellen. Mr. Sprocket! Bailiff, please get Mr. Sprocket to the infirmary on the double. So now what? Mr. Sprocket has been taken to the infirmary. We don't have to worry about him running away, so let us resume when we left off. Your Honor, the defense would like to call Pierce Nakati to the stand.
Objection!
We already know he carried out the cover-up to protect the company and Mr. Sprocket. What more do you want from him? This time it's different. The notebook, or rather Mr. Sprocket's memories, have been tampered with. That means the only person who knows the whole truth is now Mr. Nakati. Don't tell me. Are you actually trying to drum up a 3rd suspect in order to exonerate the defendant and her groom? I'm not drumming up anything, nor do I have grounds to accuse him of anything. Yet. Sorry about that. All I know is that Mr. Nakati is the only one who knows the truth, and I think he's still hiding something. Something we don't know about yet. No grounds yet, is it? Well, Mr. Edgeworth, does the prosecution consent to calling the witness to the stand? It does, Your Honor. However, I would like a little time to talk with the witness before we do. Very well. We will break for a 20-minute recess. Yep, so this one is also going to be 1 part long. And believe you me, we're going to make sure we see it all through. Next time, hopefully, is the end. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell. I will see you then. This is MegamanNG signing off. Peace out. Product provided by Capcom. Sorry about pressing the R button earlier. That was my bad.